The year is 480 BC. 600 Persian warships are threading into the strait at Salamis, oars churning white water in tight formation, Phoenician captains barking orders across decks packed with marines, Xerxes watching from his golden throne on the hillside expecting annihilation. On the other side, the Greek triremes are outnumbered, outmassed, and boxed in, rowing toward a fight most of them don't expect to survive. But let's change one thing. Something has entered the Aegean from the south. It crossed 500 miles of open ocean in under a day. It's over 1,000 feet long. It displaces 100,000 tons. Sitting on its flight deck is more combat air power than most nations have ever owned. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the most advanced warship ever built, has just entered range of every navy that has ever sailed. And today, it fights all of them. The Ford-class carrier isn't a warship in any sense a historical admiral would recognize. It's a floating sovereign territory. 2 nuclear reactors generating 700 megawatts of power, the electrical output of a mid-sized city, driving it at over 30 knots indefinitely without refueling. Its flight deck spans 4.5 acres. Below it, 5,000 crew operate in shifts around the clock. The ship doesn't sleep. What it carries is where the math breaks. 75 aircraft, FA-18 Super Hornets for strike and air defense, EA-18G Growlers that can blind radar and jam communications across an entire theater, E-2D Hawkeyes extending detection range to 300 miles in every direction, and layered close-in defenses, Sea Sparrow missiles, rolling airframe missiles, phalanx guns spitting 4,500 rounds a minute, stacked so deep that penetrating all of them isn't a tactical problem, it's closer to a physics problem. But here's the catch nobody talks about. The Ford carries roughly 2,000 weapons total, bombs, missiles, everything. Against one fleet, that's an absurd surplus. Against every fleet in history, that's a budget. And it's one that starts spending the moment the first jet leaves the deck. So, Salamis. The first Super Hornet is over the Persian fleet in minutes, cruising at 34,000 feet. Nothing in 480 BC resolves the shape at that altitude. No sound warning means anything to a crew rigging for a ramming engagement. The first GPS-guided bomb hits the Persian command galley before a single lookout has finished scanning the horizon. One moment, the ship exists. The next, it doesn't. But the Ford's strike planner is already doing math that the ancient world doesn't require him to do. 600 ships is a lot of wood. Burning through precision munitions on triremes that can't fight back is a luxury he can't afford, not with the rest of human naval history waiting in the queue. So the Hornets go surgical, command ships only. The Hawkeye has already mapped the formation, tagged the flagships, identified the signal routes. 8 aircraft hit the Persian leadership structure in coordinated strikes. Signal fires erupt across the fleet. Runners in smaller boats sprint between ships carrying orders from commanders who are already dead. The Persian sailors aren't cowards. They're doing everything their training demands. The training just wasn't designed for a problem that arrives from 34,000 feet at 600 miles an hour. 12 command ships destroyed. 41 munitions expended. The Persian fleet is organizationally decapitated. It doesn't sink, it collapses. Ships scatter, some row for shore, some collide. The fleet ceases to function as a coordinated force. The Ford's air boss calls the strike package home and starts the clock on the next cycle. But the turnaround isn't free. Every jet that lands needs fuel, ordnance, and a maintenance check. The Ford's EMALS catapult system can relaunch aircraft faster than any carrier in history, but faster isn't instant. 90 minutes to rearm and recycle a full strike package. 90 minutes where the next navy in line is closing distance. Actium. 31 BC. 500 Roman warships under Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Bigger vessels than the Persians. Heavier crews. Genuine tactical coordination. The Growlers deploy first. Not that Rome has radar to jam, but the electromagnetic noise scrambles whatever fragile cohesion the fleet maintains through flag signals and horns. Then the Hornets arrive. The result looks like Salamis, but tighter. The Ford's weapons officers are already learning to economize. Cluster strikes on formation nodes, 1 bomb per command ship instead of 2. The Romans lose their leadership faster than the Persians did because the Ford's crew has done this once already and the targeting data is sharper. 34 munitions expended, 500 ships rendered combat ineffective. But a pattern's forming below decks that the ancient world doesn't care about and the modern crew can't ignore. Ordnance inventory is dropping. Not critically, not yet, but the curve is visible. Every era that follows gets the same question. How little can we spend and still break the fleet? The Spanish Armada, 1588, 130 ships, 8,000 sailors, 19,000 soldiers, the full naval weight of the most powerful empire on Earth. Disciplined, coordinated, well-supplied, and sailing in a defensive formation specifically designed so ships can protect each other. That formation is a problem the Ford hasn't faced yet. Not because it's dangerous, because it's efficient. Dense clusters of ships are easy to hit but expensive to dismantle if you're trying to conserve munitions. The strike planner makes a call. Ignore the bulk bulk of the armada entirely, hit the squadron flagships and the supply vessels, let the formation eat itself. It works. 6 precision strikes collapse the armada's command chain. Without coordinated orders, the tight formation becomes a liability. Ships foul each other's rigging, collide in confused turns, drift into clusters that block their own fields of fire. The armada doesn't sink, it stalls. But here's what the strike planner is tracking on his console. Weapons expenditure across 3 engagements, 112 precision munitions gone. Aircraft maintenance cycles stacking, 2 Hornets are down for scheduled inspections. The sortie rate, the number of jets the Ford can put in the air per hour, is starting to matter in a way it didn't when the first Persian galley exploded. And the opponents are about to get a lot harder to kill. The age of sail doesn't end with the Armada. The next 3 centuries produce enormous wooden fleets. Trafalgar-era ships of the line, massive Chinese treasure fleets, Dutch and British armadas fighting for colonial supremacy. Each one falls the same way. Leadership decapitation, formation collapse, minimal munitions expenditure, but each one costs something. Fuel, flight hours, maintenance cycles, crew fatigue. The Ford doesn't need to refuel its reactors, but its aircraft drink JP-5 jet fuel, and the tanks aren't infinite. By the time the Ford reaches the 20th century, it has functionally ended every navy from antiquity through the Napoleonic Wars. The air wing is intact, the crew is exhausted, but operational. The ordnance bays are noticeably lighter, and the problem changes completely. The Imperial Japanese Navy, 1942. This is the first opponent that understands what a carrier is. They've built them. They've launched strikes from them. They know what an air wing can do because they've used one to shatter the Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor. The Zeros can't touch a Super Hornet in a dogfight. The speed differential alone makes it a mismatch measured in generations. But the Japanese don't need to win the air war. They need to create a problem on the surface. Type 93 Long Lance torpedoes, oxygen-fueled, 49 knots, 20-mile range, the most dangerous conventional torpedo of the Second World War, and the Japanese deploy them from destroyers that are fast, aggressive, and commanded by officers who have been training for night torpedo attacks for a decade. The Ford's escorts would normally handle this, but the Ford is alone. No destroyer screen, no cruiser picket. Its own anti-torpedo defenses and a phalanx systems are the last line, and for the first time in this scenario, last line is a phrase that actually carries weight. The Hornets sink the Japanese carriers first. Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu. Faster than the American dive bombers did at Midway. But the Japanese destroyer captains don't wait for permission. They charge. Long lances hit the water in spread patterns designed to bracket a large target. The Ford's combat systems track the incoming torpedoes. They're fast, but unguided, running on a fixed bearing. The carrier turns hard, opening its profile, and the fish pass astern. Close. Not catastrophically, but close enough that the bridge crew stops talking for a few seconds. This is the first engagement where the Ford maneuvers defensively. The first time the crew isn't just managing a strike, they're managing a threat. And it gets worse. The Kriegsmarine's U-boat fleet. Not one submarine, dozens, spread across thousands of square miles, running silent, running deep, operating under radio silence in patrol patterns designed to ambush exactly this kind of high-value target. A U-boat from 1943 can't outrun the Ford, it can't outfight it, but it can hide, and the Ford can't bomb what it can't find. The carrier's organic anti-submarine capability, helicopters with dipping sonar, sonobuoy patterns, hull-mounted arrays, is designed to work inside a carrier strike group supported by dedicated ASW destroyers and maritime patrol aircraft. Alone, it can search, but the search is slow, grinding, fuel-intensive work. Every helicopter chasing a sonar contact is a helicopter not flying combat air patrol. Every hour spent hunting submarines is an hour the remaining surface fleets of the 20th century used to close distance. This is the moment the Ford hits its wall. Not a wall of firepower, a wall of capacity. The sortie rate maxes out. The air boss is juggling anti-submarine patrols, combat air patrol, and strike missions on the same deck with the same aircraft. Pilots who flew against the Armada 8 hours ago are strapping back in against threats that can actually kill them. The maintenance crews below decks haven't slept. The weapons elevators are cycling ordnance from deeper and deeper in the magazines. Then comes the Yamato, 72,000 tons of battleship, 18-inch guns that fire shells weighing as much as a small car, the most heavily armored conventional warship ever built. In April 1945, it took 386 American aircraft to sink her. The Ford does it with 2 Hornets carrying Harpoon anti-ship missiles launched from 150 miles away. The Yamato's anti-aircraft aircraft guns have an effective range against fast jets measured in the low single-digit miles. The missiles arrive before the fire control solution locks. The armor was designed to stop battleship shells on a flat trajectory. A missile diving at a steep terminal angle into the deck is a different engineering problem, one that 1940s metallurgy doesn't solve. The Yamato sinks faster than she did in the real East China Sea, but the Ford has spent 2 more harpoons from a magazine that's not getting any fuller. So, does the Ford win? Every fleet in history, from the triremes at Salamis to the combined navies of the Second World War, goes down. The tactical answer is not in question. No historical force can destroy the Ford. No combination of historical forces comes close. But the Ford that emerges from the far end of this scenario is not the Ford that entered the Aegean at 30 knots with full magazines and an arrested crew. It's a ship running on fumes and coffee. Its ordnance bays are nearly empty. Its pilots have flown more consecutive hours than any peacetime regulation would allow. 2 aircraft are grounded for maintenance. The deck crews are working on muscle memory because conscious thought checked out somewhere around the Napoleonic Wars. The most powerful warship ever built has answered every question that 5,000 years of naval warfare could throw at it. And it answered them alone. No resupply ship, no allied port, no fleet to rotate crews or share the burden. One ship against the entire memory of human war at sea. It won. It won decisively. And now it's floating on an empty ocean with no ordnance, no reinforcements, and no way to control what happens when the smoke clears and the survivors start rebuilding. Because that's the part the carrier was never designed to answer. You can sink every fleet in history, you can break every formation, kill every flagship, shatter every command structure ever built on water, but you cannot, with one ship, hold what comes after. The Ford is the most dominant weapon system ever put to sea. It's also, at the end of this, completely alone. And the ocean doesn't stay empty for long. Or what do you think will happen? Let us know in the comments. And if you're curious to watch more, check out the video on your screen now. See ya!